Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Shannon Scott. We begin tonight in Yellowknife, where the medical boarding home is packed and dental patients are a big reason why. As the CBC's Des Loreen reports, one Inuvik mother says the territory's medical travel service is struggling to keep up with demand.
A dental clinic that's closed and an increase in dental patients. All of it has caused extra stress on the medical travel system in Inuvik and as a result in Yellowknife as well. So much so that the health minister has said that there's been a 50% increase in the Yellowknife boarding home usage since April 2023. Amanda Lenny of Inuvik recently flew to Yellowknife for dental work. She says the whole ordeal was messy, that she got the confirmation for her flight the last minute, and her appointment times were different than what she was given by medical travel.
My medical travel took a long time to book my ticket. I didn't receive my ticket until the day of travel, which was really stressful because I took time off work and I had my child with me too as well.
The dental clinic in Inuvik has been closed for months, but the CBC could not confirm when exactly it shut down. Inuvik Bootleg MLA Denny Rogers says the lack of dental services has been hard for families.
You know, the burden on families as well, and traveling back and forth to Yellowknife, you're hearing lots of stories, I'm sure, as I've heard, from shortage of accommodation, not getting properly accommodated when you're in Yellowknife, and it's difficult, and that's a service that we have always had and should still have in Inuvik, so certainly we need to look at options.
Lenny hopes the health department will improve communication with patients. She says she just wants to hear from the GNWT in hopes that it will address these concerns. Health Minister Lisa Semler says the department is working to identify solutions for travelers. Des Loreen, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Now, medical travel is also an issue in Nunavut at the moment, and one MLA is calling for action. Amotik's Julie Karnik says medical travel patients are not being given adequate time or notice of their flight itineraries. He says that leaves some people stranded or missing appointments down south. And he's calling for more staff and more resources.
This can improve if they're well taken care of. I think if they hire more people that will strictly work with patients, it can be resolved.
The Minister of Health, John Main, says his department is making progress on this issue and agrees with MLA Karnik, saying it's a good suggestion to consider. Well, the Yukon government is investing $5 million in the Winter Crossing housing project. The government says the 105-unit facility in Whitehorse is one of the largest affordable housing projects in the territory's history. It will be owned and operated by the Dadagay Development Corporation. That's the economic arm of the Ta'anguachan Council.
The project that we are launching today, Winter Crossing, will take us to the next level and will fill a gap in the housing market. I commend the innovative planning that Dadagay has undertaken, the partnerships with Evergreen Homes and Triple Bottom Line Construction, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, and of course the City of Whitehorse. The Winter Crossing Housing Initiative will provide training, dozens of opportunities for jobs and small businesses within the Yukon community as a whole.
Once finished, about 75 of the units will be leased back to the Yukon Housing Corporation for a 20-year term. Most will be income-based rentals. Some are expected to be rented below market rates. The first phase of the project is set to begin later this spring. Well, meanwhile, about 190 homes are set to be built by 2026 in Whitehorse, all thanks to a partnership between the federal government and the city. The municipality has received $11 million, and it plans to build resilient housing on some pre-existing lots, with the intent of having them near public transport. Mayor Laura Cabot calls it a bold arrangement and says the city plans to stretch every penny.
When we looked at the things that we could do and the options that were available, again, it comes down to sort of this all around sort of densification and allowing for duplexes, triplexes, where we didn't used to allow that. That's something the city is going through right now in our bylaw process. Is we're getting ahead of the bylaw rewrite process and trying to get a few quick knockoffs there so that we can get more intensive housing.
Both Cabot and Yukon MP Brendan Hanley say the goal is to have more than 3,000 homes built over the next decade. Well, in the NWT Legislative Assembly, the carbon tax was once again the hot topic today, as MLAs debated ditching the territory's version of the tax altogether in favor of using the federal one instead. Natalie Pressman is live tonight at the Legislative Assembly, where a vote on this has just taken place. Natalie, what happened today?
Well, Shannon, the NWT is one of 3 Canadian jurisdictions that has its own carbon tax legislation, along with BC and Quebec. And while those provinces have something unique about their Carbon Tax Act, MLA Kieran Testart says that, the NWT's Carbon Tax Act really just mirrors the federal legislation. And that means that every time the feds make a change, we have to debate that in our legislature, and that just slows things down. The recent example is the exemption to diesel home heating fuel. So he says that if we repeal the NWT Carbon Tax Act and adapt the federal backstop instead, that would make things quicker. But not all MLAs agree that that is the right decision. Here's a bit of the debate that happened today in the legislature.
So when we look at our carbon pricing regime, we have to ask, what are we doing with this? And I think what we've heard through this finance minister, through the previous finance minister as well, that this has been forced on the Northwest Territories. No one wants this, but we have to do it. So we're going to build our own system to shield Northerners from the costs. Yet we see our sister territory, Nunavut, and our friends in Yukon as well, they allow the federal government to collect the tax, administer the tax to the federal backstop, and still control their own rebate systems. So what this bill proposes to do is exactly that. It's to cut out the middleman and put the responsibility back in the hands of the people who imposed this carbon tax regime on the Northwest Territories in the first place.
Because I believe this bill cannot accomplish the goals or solve any of the concerns that members in this House and members of the public have been raising about the carbon tax. I fear that by sending it to committee, far from creating policy clarity, we will be causing even greater confusion and chaos amongst the general public, community governments, and industry stakeholders about what is happening with the carbon tax, and that this could cause more harm than good.
So this would only change who collects the tax. It would mean that Ottawa collects the NWT residents' carbon tax as opposed to collecting it in the NWT. And Morgan says that's not a concern that she's hearing from constituents. But Testart says that it sends a message of who is responsible for the carbon tax. The finance minister has said that, this Made in the North approach allows more flexibility, including allowing the NWT to make changes based on feedback from the public and from regular MLAs. She also said that this has been discussed already at length, and, she doesn't want to spend more time and resources talking about it even further. But just recently, all regular MLAs, except for Morgan, voted in favor of moving this bill along. So it will move on to committee and to third reading so that they can get more information that they say they need to make an informed decision. Shannon.
All right, thanks for this, Natalie. That's Natalie Pressman reporting from the NWT Legislative Assembly tonight. Now, before MLAs got to debating the carbon tax, a motion was put forward to make housing a fundamental right in the Northwest Territories. Decho MLA Cheryl Yakalaya presented the motion, and as it was debated, Satu MLA Daniel McNeely supported it. And he talked about the struggles people face when it comes to housing in his district.
Heard a number of concerns. I visually seen the state of our buildings in the communities. You go to the small communities, you really see the demand. Demand is seen in a number of ways. There's a young constituent of mine that was couch surfing for 7 years, and her reward and determination was seen by having her own home, compliments to the community's application to the federal rapid housing program. So those are proven results, and I think moving forward as we enter into a new fiscal year, I would encourage the department and this government to stand behind developing the updated needs assessment, the business case, and go to Ottawa and sell it.
Now, in the end, the motion passed, 11 in favor of making housing a fundamental right in the territory. All 7 cabinet ministers abstained from the vote. Well, representatives from Iqaluit's Northmart store went before city councils last night. It was trying to have the city wipe away tens of thousands of dollars worth of the store's water bills. The company says between September and December last year, it was billed more than $56,000 for water. Those bills would typically be about $1,700 a month. The company says it's all because of a broken pipe that spilled more than 2 million liters of water and went unnoticed until December. Last night, the company asked City Council to forgive that debt, but councillors pushed back.
They're a company who today's market value is $1.9 billion. So for them to come asking for debt forgiveness on a $48,000 water bill from their own water issues in their own building, it seems a little preposterous.
Now, Smith says the same rules would have applied to private homeowners as well. She noted that the city is still in a water crisis and that residents should still be conserving water wherever possible. As for Northmart's request, the issue was never brought to a vote, nor is Smith expecting it to. We're coming to the end of Indigenous Languages Month. In the Northwest Territories, the government recognizes 11 official languages, 9 of those being Indigenous. So that means the government has committed to providing territorial services in those languages. But some people worry that obligation isn't being met. The CBC's Frances Tessier-Burns has been digging into this and joins me now. So, Frances, just remind us, what services should people be able to access in Indigenous languages?
Basically, any territorial service. So that goes from anything from the courts to applying for a driver's license. It hasn't always been this way, though. So in 1989, there was a special committee that was dedicated to language preservation and promotion. So the committee traveled to Dene and Inuit communities across the territory, which included Nunavut at the time, and they wanted to hear what people wanted to see when it came to language protection. Now, after touring the communities, the committee produced a report that recommended 9 Indigenous languages be deemed official. And in 1990, the Official Languages Act was amended to do just that. And it also created the position of Languages Commissioner.
So, Frances, we're 35 years on from that. Where do things stand now?
Now, as any language speaker can tell you, it's not always possible to access those services in the language. Brenda Gauthier is the territory's language commissioner, and she says the territory has outdated policies and it could do more to promote the use of language in its services. She's also particularly concerned with the wording of the Official Languages Act. Now, she says it guarantees services in English and French, but only in an Indigenous language where there's, quote, significant demand for that language. And right now, she says there's no real definition of what significant demand means. Now, something else that Gauthier brought up is how the government has a dedicated team of French translators on staff. But she says that's not the case for Indigenous translators. Instead, she says departments go directly to local interpreters and translators. Now, since July, the Indigenous Languages and Education Secretariat has been coordinating translation requests more formally. But Gauthier says those translators still aren't GNWD staff.
So, Frances, what does this mean for language speakers in the territory?
So one of the most common ones that I heard about in doing this story was not being able to access healthcare needs appropriately. Now, Sharon Allen is a Dene Jati speaker and language advocate, and she grew up with her godparents who taught her the language. Now, her godfather was diagnosed with cancer when she was younger and training as a nurse, and she found herself as the unofficial interpreter because there wasn't staff available. And she says that's still happening now. So more recently, she's gone to Edmonton with her mom on medical travel, and again was the interpreter of her healthcare needs. And she says that comes with a lot of pressure.
It would be difficult for anyone because you're talking about your loved one's health and the impacts that it would have on them and how that would be for you. And to try to stay objective in what you're telling them when you're so close to someone, that creates a barrier in itself because you have your own feelings about their diagnosis or their welfare, your family's welfare. I mean, it is a burden, but it's also something that you would do for your loved one anyway.
The territory has acknowledged that getting frontline staff that are language speakers is, quote, a significant challenge, but it has been doing work to improve. For example, they've allocated funding for things like language mentorship programs, offered training to existing interpreters, and created communication materials in Indigenous languages. But it's certainly acknowledged it's still a ways from being able to offer all its services in the 9 official Indigenous languages. I also spoke with Minister responsible for official languages, Caitlin Cleveland, and she admits that there's room for improvement. And as a first-term minister, she wants to hear from people like Sharon Allen. Now, for Allen, those improvements need to happen faster. She said community members need to commit to learning the language, and she wants to see more from the government highlighting language speakers and learners.
Well, Francis, certainly a lot to digest there. Thanks so much for looking into this for us.
Thank you, Shannon.
When my grandfather, Charlie Chaplin, first arrived in Hollywood, it was a place of dreams. But my grandfather clashed with some very powerful forces in America.
Are you a member of the Communist Party? Stand away from the stand!
I'm Una Chaplin. This is Hollywood Exiles. It's about a war of ideas that tore apart friendships, ended careers, and affected families like mine.
Hollywood Exiles, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Does public transit really need more police officers? And so this is it.
Welcome to the Greenbelt.
It is now believed that Titan was destroyed. It makes sense that they get a larger share, or does it?
All of this, just single detached homes.
Yes.
What do we know? How is that even possible? Well, with a little bit of help, I think we can explain it.
About that with Andrew Chang. Watch free on CBC Gem.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes your world.
All right.
Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
It goes on like this, and on and on and on and on.
It's news you can trust, delivered when you want, where you want. On Canada's News app. Download the free CBC News app.
Bad hair days. We all have them.
Even as scientists.
I think I know my place. It's not making art.
What?
This is a whale?
That's incredible.
I'm piloting a boat in the fjords of Norway. I love this job.
You never listen to me.
You never think things through.
Your honeymoon phase is officially over.
We never had a honeymoon phase.
You really gonna make me say it?
Oh, yeah.
Fine. I need you, Max.
So much drama.
I love it.
You're tired of that?
Stop it. Get tired of that. Well, today is Pink Shirt Day, an annual event against bullying. Schools across Canada took part, including Inukshuk High School in Iqaluit, where staff and students wore pink to show their support. CBC reporter TJ Deer was there.
Students at Inukshuk High School wore pink shirts to raise awareness about bullying in schools. Pink Shirt Day started after a Nova Scotia student was bullied in school for wearing pink in 2007. Today, students and staff could pledge their commitment by signing a pink poster and take pictures together. Estrella Allen took part.
I think it's important because it spreads awareness that bullying is constantly happening to everyone, and that even though if you're pretty or perfect or whatever, even different, it's just how you show people that you care.
Staff member Tina Morrissey said the students have realized the importance of the day and the message it carries.
I think it makes us feel, that we're in the right direction, and it makes us feel like we're a cohesive group as well, and that everyone does want to have the school to be a positive space, and that's what we're striving for every day.
But despite everyone's efforts, bullying is still a problem. Even Nunavut politicians realize this, and one MLA asked the Minister of Education, Pamela Gross, about it last week. He wants an update on an online system that records reports of bullying and violence. But Gross said the database is still in the early stages.
We have had more schools, some schools utilizing it a lot more, and we're just trying to ensure that they're all using it and that the information is being inputted so that we can keep track of any incidents or and work to mitigate them.
Graz says any incidents should be logged in the database, but that means students also have to come forward. TJ Deer, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Well, take a look at this. This is what Team Nunavut will be wearing at next month's Arctic Winter Games. We also now know who will be the territory's flag bearer. Iris Soluapik, a badminton athlete from Panukttu, will have the honor. Mission staff say athletes are busy preparing themselves for next month's games.
There's a sense of responsibility, and I think the kids feel really take on that responsibility when they put on Team Nunavut's uniforms, and they're going there to represent the territory.
The Arctic Winter Games run from March 10th to 16th in Matsu, Alaska. Well, mushers competing in the Ivakak 2024 Challenge faced some harsh weather today. Organizers say blizzard conditions and 80-kilometer-an-hour winds force some teams to travel by skidoo to Inukjuak. The teams will have to wait it out in the community until conditions clear before they can continue on to the final stop at Pavarnukto. Well, it's becoming a tradition for CBC North and Inuvialuktun speakers, the annual Tusavik Inuvialuktun radio contests. Entrants are encouraged to make fun videos in the Inuvialuktun dialect of their choice. Tusavik host Dodi Magdalena started the contest 4 years ago, and it's been growing ever since. This year's contest wrapped up last Friday. Here's a look at some of the videos sent our way.
Uvlumi nuit humilaka, uvanga atega igluguk, umaramutun ukariniaria aglan, umaramutun daiwariniaria unamakbirak. Kilang me in the sky. Hikinik kilang me tuk. Hikinik kilang me tuk. The sun is in the sky. Tatkik kilang me tuk. Tatkik kilang me tuk. The moon is in the sky. Nuviat kilang mitut. Nuviat kilang mitut. The clouds are in the sky. Uvluret kilang mitut. Uvluret kilang mitut. The stars are in the sky. Unadaniktun vocabulary. Daiwarinaritka. Hikinik. Hikinik. Tatkik. Tatkik. Nuvia. Nuvia. Uvlo. Nuviat. 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 Uvlureak. Uvlureak. Uvlureat. Uvlureat. Kilak. Kilak. Uvlureak. Uvlureak. What get that? R. Tavra. Unamakpireak. Kilang me. Kuyenani. Kuyenakpak. Ilat nilu.
Ovlumi. Ovanga atiga alakachala. Ovlupak. Talimeganek. Ovluktu hinyagavik. Inuinak. Pingahot. Kihugerta 2024 me. Ovlupak hila. Ekanyagik duk. Ahin kakarap. Ariga.
Ovanga atiga mingoyok. Kina ilibit. Ovanga atiga Cindy. Kanugitbit. Nakurunga. Nakurunga.
Okay, Bullocks and Lindsays are going to try out head and shoulders, knees and toes in Inuvialuktun. Nya cook, dwee cook, heat cook, buttercook, heat cook, buttercook, heat cook, buttercook, nya cook, dwee cook, heat cook, buttercook, Hutik, Iraq, Kanek, Kingak, Okay, now let's try his rap as fast as we can. Nya cook, dwee cook, he cook, butter cook, he cook, butter cook, he cook, butter cook. Nya cook, dwee cook, he cook, butter cook. You take Iraq, kanek, kingak. Awesome, you guys! Woo!
Such fun being had in so many of those videos. Thank you so much for sharing them. We'll have more videos to show you from that contest later this week. That fiddle music usually gets me dancing, but we've got some visitors in the control room tonight who are dancing along with me. So thanks to them for not making me feel so out of place. That is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, you can always visit our website, cbc.ca/north. We're going to leave you tonight with the Inukshuk drum dancers. They performed at Team Nunavut's AWG uniform reveal event. Always love watching the drummers. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Shannon Scott. We'll talk again tomorrow.